Today we are going to be doing this here within HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, front-end development of the design that we created 2 days ago. What is up, everybody? Gary Simon here. This is part 2 of 2 in terms of creating a modern, trendy, artsy UI design. So 2 days ago rather, I uploaded a video where I showed you how to design this here within Figma. And so I'll link that in the description if you missed that video. But today we're gonna make it a reality here in the browser. Now it's not responsive just because I wanted just to show these basic techniques because there's a lot here in and of itself. So this doesn't work. I can leave that up to you if you all want to try to do that. But there is a lot of cool things happening here that we will be doing. This is some Three.js image transitions that morph into each other. Very cool. We also have some, adjusting positions based on mouse position here and a lot more. So as always, make sure to subscribe and let's get started. Now wait one moment, you're about to watch me embark on some intermediate to advanced front-end development. Now, if you're a beginner to front-end development, you should definitely check out the front-end developer career path at scrimbot.com. They've recently launched their front-end development career path, which is a collection of courses that cover HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React, and much, much more, as you see. It's over 75 hours of awesome content. There are hundreds of interactive coding challenges, and it's all geared towards helping you go from beginner to someone that's hireable as a front-end developer. So check out the first link in the description below to get 50% off. All right, everybody. So we're in here in Figma. This is the actual prototype that I created a couple days ago, and I showed the video tutorial of how to do that. And let's just get started by defining the HTML. So I'm here in Visual Studio Code. Quick boilerplate, already up and running. We're linking to a CSS main.css file. Here's the folder. In the file, we're using Sass. You'll need the live Sass compiler in the plugins or extensions section rather, and also the live Sass, the live server extension. So I'm going to open that up by right-clicking the index.html, and there we are, blank page. Okay, so I taking a real quick look at my reference code. All right, so what I'm going to do in order to structure this layout is, let's go back here. Sorry, blah 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 blah. Is we're going to take this water, we're going to call this a water BG, a class of water BG, and we're going to make this a div. And so we'll just do that right away. It's going to be position absolute. So water BG, there we go. And that's blank. And then we're going to have a div class of container, which will house, if I go back here, all the text content. So container. I also want to put in the title, or the headline rather, in its own class as well because some special stuff is happening to it. You'll see like the individual letters will be adjusted and such. So we're going to put a div class of title and then a class of title -1 for the first line. Spectacular series of, and then we'll just replicate this, Shift-Alt down. People are messaging me. Let's get this out of the way. There we go. And then I'll just, honestly what I'll do just to save a little bit of time is I'll just paste in these two. So this is going to be title 2, title 3, events that will unwind you. All right. After the title, we're just going to put a paragraph for the subheadline that exists in the document. So I'll put that right there. So this is what our design looks like so far. Very ugly. All right. And then after that, we're gonna have, we have a circular cursor, so that'll follow the mouse pointer around, so we need a div class for that. And also a div for this little image right here. So we'll put that image first. So we'll just call it a class of img, and then also a class of cursor. That's all the HTML that we need for this project. Now let's get into the CSS and then we'll get into the JavaScript and finish this up. So let's get our background color going here. What do we have going here initially? Oh, yep. I like adding this at the top. All before and after, box sizing, border box. Again, if you don't know what that is, basically helps deal with width over or some horizontal scroll bars is what it ends up creating most of the time. When you try to apply a width of 100% on an element and then you try to add margin or padding to it, it screws it up and it throws it off. So this fixes that. Take our body. Background color happens to be that beige color. It's ECEBDA. All right. We're going to display grid and we're going to place the content center. And what that will do, we can't show you yet. I have to put height in order for this to work. Height, 100 viewport height on the body element. So what this does is it takes this stuff and just puts it center vertical and horizontal. All right. Next up after that, get rid of default margin on the browser. And I'm going to put overflow hidden just for this example. And we're also going to create that vertical border that exists right here by just using the body before pseudo selector. So now we can do just content, empty, position, absolute. And we could put in left, 12% or so, border left, 1 pixel solid, and it's going to be RGBA 000, which is black, and then the final parameter, which is alpha, we'll just put it 0.2, height, 100 viewport height, and top will be 0. So we situate it up, and now we get this. Sweet. All right. After that, our container. Now, if you look at our design here in Figma, you can see it's not centered like, all this stuff is not centered right here. So we need to offset it. I'm going to just use a negative margin for that. Margin left, negative 50%. By the way, I'm not making this responsive. Normally you would do mobile first, but just for this demo, we're only sticking with desktop. All right, so now that's going to move all that stuff over just slightly. You can't really tell it here too much, but when we make this stuff bigger, this text here, you will definitely tell it then. So for the title, we're going to import a couple fonts. Apparently I didn't do that in my sample code, so fonts.google. All right, we need a font called 6 caps right here. We're going to select that style. We also need a font called Playfair Display SC. So let's go back to Google Fonts, type in Playfair Display SC. I think we just need regular. And then now we will just link these two up here. There we go. Now for our title, remember the title wraps around all this stuff. We gotta make that, let's see, font family 6 caps. All right, so sans serif. Now it's gonna change. You can barely see it. Now we have to make it a monster. We have to make it massive. Font size, 10 rem units. Now let's see what happens there. There we go. Now it's looking big and beefy. I don't really like the leading here or the line height, so let's bring it in. And I'm going to choose a line height, 10.5 rem units. There we go. Now that's much more consistent with what we have over here. Okay, and then in order for that little image that's going to show up in between here, for that to work, we have to do a couple other things. We're going to put in overflow. Wait, I'm going to leave that off. We're going to put pointer events none, and that makes it so that when the cursor won't be able to interact with it when you do that, and that will allow the image effect to work when we do that in the future. We're also going to position relative, and the reason we're doing that is because we're going to use a pseudo before element in order to create this little dash. All right, so we're positioning, that's going to be position absolute, but it's going to be position in relative to this container right here. So on the parent, we put position relative, and then we put and before. And then let me just copy these 2 lines because it's always the same for this sort of thing. And then we're gonna put a width of about 10%, so that's the width of that little dash. Height of about 3 pixels. A background of black. A left is gonna be -15%, and top will be 15%. Now, how did I get these values? I experimented by positioning them, and just checking live reload. So there we go. All right, let me also fix this. I'm kind of zoomed up. There we go. All right, so next up after that, we're gonna take our title 1 and title 2, which is lines right here and here, and we're gonna give them a Z index. And I'll tell you why. So title 2, and then, no, title 2 and 3 I meant. This is gonna be a position relative so that we can then give it a Z index of 2 so that they sit on top of the future graphic that will show up. And what I'm talking about is right here. This graphic right there. I decided to make this one also in front of that graphic. So it'd be like that. All right. After that, we come out and we're gonna position our sub headline, or style it rather. This time it's gonna be a font family of Playfair Display SC. Font size, beef it up a little bit, 1.5 rem units, and a margin top of 2 m units. So now, check this out. There we go. Looking pretty good right there. All right, next up, we're gonna take our water background, or water BG. We're gonna do position, absolute, width, 30, height, 100 viewport height, want it to scale all the way. We also want a Z index of -1, because there's gonna be, what was it? There's a couple things, I think it has to do with the image, the floating image. A background color, DBC 9, and right will be 0 to position it over there. All right, so I decided to opt just to put a solid background color here, mainly because I didn't feel like downloading that image and because I'm probably just lazy. You could easily do this though. The image itself, you can see it's a full image, but what you would do is download the actual image, and then you could use a pseudo element of before. I could just show you, but I've already did it a million times. We're just gonna leave this off. Should I do it? Don't be lazy, Gary. You gotta do it. All right. What I'm gonna do is go to unsplash.com. So you're gonna see some live coding because this is not in my reference coding. I might screw this up. I don't know. We're gonna type in. I know what I typed in to find it. It's emotional. There she is. So now we're gonna download this. That's massive. Let's just do the small size. It won't be able to tell because it's a watermark, so it's not that big of a deal. I'm going to call this girl.jpg. We're going to then create an assets folder, and I'm going to drag her into the assets. There we go. So now, let's see if we can figure this out. So it's water.bg. Let's change this just to background. We'll leave it that color. How will I do this? Yeah, I think I know how I'll do it. We'll figure this out. All right, so we'll do URL. We'll do assets girl.jpg. All right, and we're gonna put mix blend mode, luminosity. I had a little bit of trouble with this. I thought it was background blend mode, but it wasn't. So there we go. Now we just take and give it opacity. So opacity 0.12 or 1.3. I don't know. Let's see. Well, what do we do here? 13%. But is there something behind it? Is there a... No, it's not. Let's see if it looks the same. Might want to just boost it up slightly. Let's try like 1.7. All right. Okay, that's cool. All right, next up. That took too long. So now we're gonna take our image, IMG right here, which is in reference to this. Get out of there. This thing. All right, so let's create that real quick. IMG position absolute width. We're gonna hard code this in 16 M units. Height is gonna be 27 M units. Top will be 30%, left 30%. Z index will be 1. That will situate it correctly in the correct order stack or whatever to get it between those pieces of type. We will also choose to hide it initially, but we're gonna leave some stuff off first. We'll do that stuff after. So let's see here. We're gonna save it, and now we're not gonna be able to see it because we didn't do anything. Like, we didn't give it a background. So like background green, for instance, it's gonna look horrible. That's what that looks like. You can see it's right there where it needs to be. But we're gonna use a special script, a Three.js script that I found that will allow you to transition between two different images upon hover. So let me find that reference really quickly. It's called Hover.js. Let me find Hover.js 3.js. Seriously? That's not the search term I used? Unreal. Transition. I should have found this. I think this is it. Is this it? Yeah, that's it. Awesome. Okay, so basically what we do is we demo article. I need to find, yeah, so we have to get Three.js working first, all right, or imported. So just go to Google and type in Three.js CDN, and while we're at it, also get GSAP as well. So we're gonna come down here. So we got Three.js right there. We're going to use GSAP too in a little bit when we get to the JavaScript stuff. And then we also need our Hover.js script. So I'm going to make all this code available, and that way you can copy this code. So I'm going to create the Hover.js, and the Hover.js is in that GitHub. If you navigate to the folder, and I'm just going to paste that right here. There we go. So now we do script. And we have to get two images. I'm gonna right click and I'm gonna go, you can use any image you want really. So I'm gonna reveal in File Explorer. This is my reference code. And I have three different images in an images folder. I think I'll just use assets for that though. So let's reveal. All right, so we have these three right here. This right here is a displacement map, and you'll see what I mean by that. It's used by that Hover.js in order to create an interesting transition. I also got that from an article that I'll remember to link in the YouTube description, that little displacement graphic. All right, so what we want to do in order to get that working is we use this code right here. And this is all specific to Hover.js. So let me get this tabbed up. So we just say var my animation. The parent is document query selector, the image right here, which is currently green. And the intensity, you have a bunch of values. You can look at that GitHub URL we just saw. Image is assets. We have to change that. And that's the three graphics that we put in. This is the one that's going to show up by default. You hover, it's going to transition to that next JPEG. And then the displacement is how it looks when it's transitioning. Let's see if it works. There we go. So when you're transitioning, you can kind of see that displacement, like how it's designed. So you can use a lot of different types of images to change how this all works. And that's all it is. Look at that, freaking cool. Now let's make it let's make it so that when the mouse is moving, this will have some movement along with it. A lot of these sites, these trendy sites, do that sort of thing. So what we'll do is we'll say let cursor, because we have to get the cursor position, equals, let's beef this up a little bit. There we go. All right, like cursor, X is gonna be 0, Y is gonna be 0. And what we'll do is document, on the document itself, we'll add an event listener of mouse move, pass in the event, and we'll say cursor.x equals, we're gonna reverse the values instantly, so we're gonna put e.clientx times 0.1. Now, I'll show you kind of I'll explain this in a second, but let me just do this real quick. Client Y. All right. And then what we'll say is we'll take our image, which we haven't yet defined, so let me do that. There's a couple things that we need to create properties. So title, image, and a cursor circle. All document query selector is just getting these three things. Right now, we just need the image for this code. We'll get these in a second, the other two things. And then what we'll say is image style dot transform. So we're going to change the CSS transform property of the image. And we'll use backticks for this, for template literals. We'll do translate. So we're going to translate on the X and the Y. And the first parameter is X. So we pass in the cursor.x, px, all right, because we add pixel, the CSS pixel unit, otherwise this won't work. And then same thing here for the Y, cursor.y, px, and we close the backticks right here. So if we save it, we will see, ta-da! Now we reversed it, so it goes the opposite direction. If we took that off, it goes in the same direction. So it's all a matter of like what you want. Like, see, I think it's cooler to reverse it. And then 0.1, if we left this at itself, it would fly off the screen. See, it's like, yeah, way too much. So we multiply it by a factor of like 0.1. That way it significantly reduces the effect. All right. Also, let's get our cursor. Let's go back to our CSS rather, and let's get our cursor real quick. At this point, I'm just going to start pasting in code. That's fine. If there's something interesting, I will mention it. So our cursor is position absolute, a width and height of 3 em units, a border radius 50%. That makes it a circle. And then of course we put the border on here. Margin left. We're going to take margin left and margin top and negative it by 1.5, or in other words, half of the width and height. That will get it to the exact center of the cursor pointer. So now, if we look here, it's way up here in the upper left. But now we're going to use JavaScript to make it follow us around. We'll just do it right here in the mouse move event listener. And we will say cursor circle, defined right here, dot style dot transform. It's the same thing, equals translate. And we put, this time, we want it to follow exactly the mouse movement. So instead of putting cursor.x, we'll just put e.clientx and e.clientY. And then backtick, go back, get out of there. And there we go. It follows us. Now you can do something extra cool to make it look like it gradually follows you, and then kind of, I did that in a few other tutorials back, and then you guys can hopefully look that up. It's just a little bit more work because you have to tie into the web animation frame, all that stuff. But this is cool for now. All right, let us continue. Let's get the effect where the lines, what do you call it? Each character falls in. That's where GSAP will come into play. All right, so what we'll do is we're gonna come up, we'll do this at the top here. We're gonna say let text wrapper equals document.query selector title 1. And we're gonna do this also for each of the 3 lines. So 2 and 3 right here. So now we have access to those. Now we're going to do a little bit of a DOM manipulation. Now, full disclosure, I got this code from somewhere else. I Googled it. But essentially what we're going to be doing is we're going to be, I think we end up adding a span for each individual letter so that we can animate each of them independent of each other. All right, so here's what that code looks like. In fact, let me just paste it, and then we can quickly look over it. So textwrapper.inner.html equals textwrapper.textContent. That gives you access to this stuff. Replace. All right, so this right here, I forget exactly what that does. I'm not going to pretend to know, but it's a parameter for searching what it needs to replace exactly. And what it does is it says span class letter, and then this right here will probably just maintain this value right here and then close up the span. So it's not replacing it just yet. I think we're going to get to that part possibly in a second. So then what we do is the same thing, except we just replace text wrapper. Yeah, we'll just do text wrapper 2, text wrapper 2. Everything's the same after this point. And then same thing right here. Okay. Yeah, admittedly, the dot replace here method in JavaScript, not something I ever really messed with much before. Okay, so now we're going to use our GSAP, and we're going to say let timeline, or TL, equals gsap.timeline. And then, look, by the way, let's see what happens before we screw around with that. Yeah, so it did. It went through every single letter, and it had added a span letter of class, a span class letter to it, and it's done it for all of them. All right, cool. So now we have access to those through GSAP, and so what we can say is timeline.to title 1 letter. All right, so what's that mean? Title 1, we're going to access this. And then each of the letter classes, there are a span of here of letter. The P is a span of letters, so like that. And then what we do is we say opacity is going to be 1, Y will be 0. Unfortunately, I just finished this tutorial, but the last 6 minutes I hit the wrong key and I did this. And so I would be uploading this. Of course, you can't see my code editor, so I have to redo this portion right here. Unfreaking real. I hate myself sometimes. I've done that multiple times, by the way. All right, so let's continue on. So yeah, next up we have clip path property. We're gonna be animating the clip path. All right, so polygon, and where this comes from, like I already mentioned, but you didn't know it because I deleted that part of the video, CSS Clippy. All right, so this is a trapezoid selected. Just go to Google and type Clippy CSS, you'll find the same page. And we want to reveal it, so we're pushing this all the way out, and this is the value that we want right there. All right, so we just put that in right there. All right, and then after that, we're gonna stagger. Stagger. 0.3, and that just takes all of the letters and it animates them at a 0.3 second duration, separating them so that they come in a sequence. And that's good right there. And then we just take that and replicate it, but I'm not gonna do that because I already have the reference code, so I'm just gonna cheat and copy and paste the next 2 lines. So title 2 letter, title 3 letter. Same exact thing, except this time we have a negative, an offset, so that these fall in sequentially with each other. So if we look at that, that's what we got, but you probably won't have the same result at this point because I have this, and you need to add that as well. So it's title 1 letter, title 2 letter, title 3. So we're targeting all the letter elements. I suppose we could just take this off entirely and just do letter. Yeah, what am I doing? That would work too. Display inline block, line height 1em unit, clip path, we're hiding it by default, and then we're transform, translate Y 50. That's how they're falling in. So now that's what we get. All right. Next up, also you're not seeing that graphic anymore because I took this on our image element. The clip path polygon, we're hiding it by default. And by the way you hide it, it's just you go to Clippy and you just drag these up. And that's those values that you'll see right here and here as well. And then transform scale 0. I think we could take that off though. All right, and then to get that animating in, we're just gonna take, well first I wanted to animate the paragraph element or the sub headline, so I'm just gonna paste that in. So we do the paragraph element, opacity 0, weight Y -50, and then a 0.7 duration offset. And then finally, we take our image, clip path, polygon, this reveals it just like these ones up here. We could take scale off because that wasn't working. Custom easing, just typing GSAP easings in Google and you'll find where this stuff comes from. It's a visual editor. I don't even think this, yeah, it's fine. And then duration is 0.75 and then just a 0.5 negative offset. So now at this point, we should be done. Oh, I also wanted to make it so that when you hover over the image, opacity, yeah, 0.5 or so. Like that. Yeah, there's something funky happening. Sometimes when we refresh, it kind of offsets. Might have something to do with one of the scripts that we've added. But I have added that opacity hover just so we can kind of see this type if we need to. And that's it. All right, awesome stuff. All right, hopefully you learned a lot from that. I know that was quite a bit to digest. Make sure to check out DesignCourse.com if you really want to get great at UI, UX design. Put in your email because it's going to be releasing here in a few months. Depending on when you watch this, perhaps it's already out. So I will see you all very soon. Goodbye.